Hello, hope you're all doing well. Uh, hello. People can see my screen. Audio, I assume, is good. Probably get started at like a few minutes after. Could be a little smaller this week, which is kind of nice actually. Because of the timing. We can do more demos. People can demo for longer. If you demoed last week, keep demoing again. If you didn't demo, really consider demoing. You should demo at some point. Yeah, we have more time, so you can get more feedback. Be nice in a smaller group setting. Presentation isn't too long either. I don't think overly technical, but definitely more technical than last week. Slides are in the calendar invite or on Discord. Probably like 1 or 2 more minutes just for people to join. Can someone in the chat confirm everything is visible? Or like screen share the audio? Sweet. We all had a nice weekend. Yeah, today, just to say again, should be pretty light. I think a little bit shorter than usual, and we should have more time for demos. So while we're just chilling for a sec, feel free on your machine to get your stuff ready to demo. Be cool. As a first question while we're waiting, who has used Git before? Which is in the chat. Maybe you can react. Yay, nay. Is it scary? Is it familiar? Do you use it but you don't understand it? Maybe we'll have a little bit. My hope is that today it's not like a mystery. Like you've used it probably before on personal projects, doing like git add, git commit, git push. But hopefully today it makes a little bit more sense. Feels a bit more real. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we'll get past that today. I'd say this is probably the foremost thing you learn on an internship because you have to collaborate with lots of developers. Regardless of your team size, you work in a repo, which if you don't know what that term means, it's fine, with lots of other people. And interns make tons of like newbie mistakes when it comes to Git. It's like very normal. The hard thing to get right, surprisingly easy to get wrong. So you guys, when you intern, will be pros because you already know it. Let me let people in. Wait, okay. I'm gonna wait till 5 after, and then I'm gonna start going. Okay, let's get it. So, welcome back. It is officially week 3.5. I could not present last Friday. I hope you all had a lovely weekend. We are back for the third edition of a summer shipping call. So yeah, Monday edition. Hopefully, a lot of you are from before. If you're new, hello. Because of the weirder timing, we have a little bit of a smaller crew, but no problem. Hopefully, you all had a nice last week. Last week we talked about project management. I projected about my thoughts on project management. If you didn't catch that, it's on YouTube. I think a lot of people have watched it, which is awesome to see. We also did some more getting up to speed with Summer of Shipping. So more project work, more tweeting, more connecting on Discord. Looks like things are still really active, which I'm very excited about. Twitter has been awesome. We also had our first batch of demos, which were mind-blowing. I asked for a Hello World. I got a lot more than Hello World. Super exciting. So hopefully see more from those projects soon and hopefully see some more demos. That'll be a big part of today, hopefully. Sorry, I still haven't re-recorded the intro. It's not that important, but I will do it. I'm going to do it right after this one. I am also due for some other catch up. I talked to the mentors last week, but I still haven't connected them with project groups. I was busy this weekend. So I'll do that tonight. I'm going to do all my catch up this evening. If there are other things that are on your brain, feel free to bother me. But yeah, that's summer shipping last week. This week, I'll go on Twitter. We'll look at some ships. There's some housekeeping to take care of. And the workshop this week is Let's Get It, all about Git. It's not as sexy as last week. Last week, I think it was pretty fun, pretty light. But this is probably something you're definitely going to learn on the job. College, like if you go to school, you're in university, does a laughably bad job of covering it. I would say I've never seen a good college like handling of Git in general. I'll try to keep it practical, go beyond the like basic Git that a lot of you are probably familiar with, and then we'll do some reminders, demos, and breakouts, time permitting, as usual. So firstly, ships. I'll get to that slide in a second, but there was a lot of cool stuff. I wanted to make screenshots, but I ran out of time. So instead, I'll just scroll through lovely Twitter. Somebody shipped a degree. That was pretty cool. Shout out Josh. That's pretty wicked. A lot of just like really cool development going on. Everything from Android apps to command line stuff to like personal websites. Somebody launched on LinkedIn. I should have pulled that up beforehand. But yeah, pretty wicked. Shout out to you all. It's looking really good. I don't know why these are all my tweets on the hashtag. But yeah, just really, really impressed. Keep tweeting when you can. And what I wanted to say especially is do not worry about doing it every single day. If you miss a day, life goes on. In fact, this was the first week that I missed a day. So I cheated and tweeted for 2 days at once, and got the days wrong. So look, life goes on. The goal of doing a little bit every day is to build, these like tiny little glasses. Just, you're thinking about your project, you're making like slight progress. That's totally fine. For context, like where this philosophy comes from, I guess. When I was a kid and still kind of, I learned piano and played the piano. And the most effective periods of time where I learned the most, got the most better, is not when I practiced like 4 hours on Monday and then never again for the entire week, but when I made like time 5 to 15 minutes every day for an entire week. I just found a little bit of time to work on one scale or work on one tricky part of a piece. I learned much, much faster. So I'm big on the little glass consistency. It's not the easiest thing in software development, but it's really important. So don't feel pressured to every day launch something massive, but do try to be consistent. I think it's an important part of becoming a better developer. Okay, so with that note, some reminders. This is all the same from last week, but reminders about summer shipping. We're here to improve your resume, so both your paper resume, your skills, and your public resume. So this workshop, project management should have changed, but this workshop is here to talk about Git, which is something you learn on like every internship ever, and you'll see why that is pretty soon. Housekeeping, a lot of this is the same. Mentors, if you have an idea posted on the ideas channel on Discord, I will connect you with a mentor ASAP. Also, the intake form, you can go out and like edit your responses. So if you didn't put a project initially, update that. And then if we go to summershipping.com, and this is the website, if you've never seen it before, go check it out, please. But you can go to Team Up, see all the projects, and whoa, look at all these unbelievably cool projects. There are so many. This is amazing. And it looks like a lot of people have updated it, which is pretty cool. But if you're one of these, like nothing yet, I'm not sure, nothing on my mind, I encourage you to go back and do it. You can also view it in a new tab and look at all of your projects. So lovely. There will be a similar thing for this for mentors soon, but I just don't have it polished yet and don't want to release any of their stuff unless they're like totally cool with it. So it's coming. Also, just the events like calendar is here. This is just I'm not signed in, but all this stuff is available to you. So make sure you know about this website. It exists. Okie dokie. Reading group. Last week, there was kind of some rumblings of a reading group for designing data intensive applications. Still a Discord channel for it. If somebody wants to take initiative and get on that, that's awesome. I think it's really worth reading. This is especially helpful if you're, like, say, an older university student or you're a new grad. In first, second year, a lot of the interviews you'll do are very like engineering focused. So think like algorithms, LeetCode, that kind of stuff. What designing data intensive applications will do as a book is kind of take you one step beyond thinking at a system level or like a system design interview, if you've heard of that, and help you build like bigger apps, maybe multiple services, start thinking about deploying stuff in the cloud and more complex setups. So if you want to like really, really level up beyond just engineering, if you think you've written a lot of code already, but you want to take another step, that's a good book to sort of like really level up. But again, I don't want to force it on this community. I'm not sure what backgrounds we have. But if someone's already reading it into that book, has some free time, highly recommend. Time zones, still haven't heard a lot of noise about alternate time zones. I think people are happy with the recordings, and so am I. I don't have to wake up early. But if people want to demo in the morning, maybe I'll do like a 1-off or 2-off during the summer for demos from people, for people from other time zones. But yeah, make some noise if you want me to do it. If there's enough interest, I'll definitely do it. I'm okay with it, but still TBD. Moderators, I'll make a group chat later today. I need a better onboarding flow for Discord, but everything else I think is in good shape. Lucy's, I only had one person reach out to me about beginner support, like resources. So I just worked with that person one-on-one. Feel free to keep asking me if you're a beginner and you're stuck. You don't know like what resources to look at. You don't know how to get started. Feel free, just shoot me a message. More than fine to deal with that. Ideas, I still owe you guys that Notion doc. Oops. I'm looking into a donut-like bot for our Discord. If you haven't heard of Donut before, it's a bot that just like randomly pairs people from a server so you can connect, but like your common interests. It's crazy to me. There isn't one pre-built for Discord. There are some people who've like tried to do it, hasn't gone through. Not really sure why. So I'm looking at a sort of like opt-in way for people to connect with other people from SOS. There also is an official LinkedIn and the Twitter lists. If you're not in or on either of those, shoot me a message. I think the LinkedIn I should drop on the Discord. I'm not sure that one's been forwarded to you guys yet, but coming. Website's getting better all the time. The FAQ's there. The project tab's getting better. The mentors tab will be up to date soon. And then I'm probably, once all like the information is there, going to give it a facelift because it's pretty ugly. So stay tuned for all that. If you want to help, I would like directly mentor you on some web stuff. And right now it is quite literally just index.html plus a styles.css file. So pretty easy to work out of. So yeah, if you're looking for a project still or want to get some hands on web dev experience, consider that. All right. Remember, keep it fun. The more you put into this community, the more you get out of it. I'll say this every week. But again, yeah, summer shipping is pretty light. No one's getting paid here. No one's paying the money. So yeah, if you're having fun, I'm happy. And if you have any feedback, I'm all ears. Okay, so let's get it. This week we're talking about Git. What is Git? So Git is a version control system. It's a command line tool that you use to manage versions for software. So as you work on any useful software project, it evolves. Useful software has to be maintained, upgraded. If you've ever written a project before, you'll know that if you deploy it into the wild and you leave it, if you go back to it in a month, 2 months, 3 months, it inevitably stops working. This is just the way software is. There are security issues that come up. There are things that go out of date for various reasons. Other people are upgrading their software. So like your browser will get an upgrade, or your like Windows, you'll have a new version of Windows, and then all of a sudden your software doesn't work on the new operating system that you have. So you have to follow suit and continue to upgrade your stuff. And you want to manage from version to version the bugs in your software. You want to keep note of what changes you're making. Git is the way we do this in a sane way, so we don't pull all our hair out from trying to manage the versions of our software. So when I was in high school, this was how me and my friends would work on projects together. I would say, hey, I added the code for like phase 1 of the project. I would email it to my friend. I'd make a .zip of my files. I would send it to my friend. And then my friend would say, oh no, I was also working on main.java. I don't really know how to combine them. I'll figure it out. And then we both realized that like in merging them, we introduced a bug and we can't keep track of where it happened. We don't know like what merge did it. This is the like canonical experience of pre-Git before I even knew that was a thing. So before I mention anything more about Git, I want to talk about versioning. So there are many ways to version software. Common one you'll see, it varies from company to company or project to project. Some people use like the date of the release. So say like dates, maybe .timestamp, .1, .2, whatever, some numbering system like this that's ordered, right? So you go from like the first release, it'd be like the first date you ever released the software to like today. The most common one and a handy term to be aware of is something called SEMver. This is short for semantic versioning. Pretty sure they have a website. Yep. You can read about it here. It's not that interesting. It's funny to me that they have their own semantic version. I think that's pretty cool. So the way it works is it's 3 numbers separated by decimals. You have the major version, a minor version, and a patch. So they have like a technical definition here. I'll give a simpler definition. It's kind of more casual. So It's XYZ. X is the major version. So think about that like V1 to V2. It's like a total upgrade of the software. Things are now incompatible between the first release, second release. People have to upgrade. It's not a minor change. Y, on the other hand, is a minor change. So this could be like a new feature you add that doesn't like break the existing or the old version of the app, just like something new you added. And then Z is like a patch. So you make some like really quick fix, some like very minor change that like addresses some bug. That would go as a patch. And you just increment each of those numbers. So from the first to second patch, you go from the old Z to Z plus one. If you do a new minor version, Y to Y plus one. This is a common way to version software. If you're working in a JavaScript project, you have that like package.json file. It'll have like a version field, and it's Semver by default. So just something to know. There are different ways you can version software, and it's important to keep track so that way you can know what features are supported. Your users can upgrade and they know what they're getting, that kind of thing. Okay, so Git introduces versioning for teams separate to like release versions. It's a software tool, specifically a command line application, mostly. Like that's how most people use it. Developed by this guy, Linus Torvalds. If you have no idea who that is, I'll blow your mind. There's gonna be a lot of just casual Googling today because we've got a small group. This guy, probably the best programmer of all time. If you ever heard of Linux, he wrote that kernel. He also wrote Git. That's already a crazy resume. My favorite random thing that he's done is wrote, look it up, a dive log, which I got into scuba diving like last year. And of all the open source projects he's used, he also wrote a like really good cross-platform open source dive log. So he's just really good at writing code. He invented this thing, Git, and a long time ago. It's still used today. Okay, so Git starts out with some terminology. For a software project that you have, so think of it's like a folder on your machine with a bunch of like code files in it. We call that a repository files. Git creates a hidden folder called .git that manages behind the scenes some like versioning stuff. And this folder is synced with a central Git server and managed by various teammates during a change. Okay, so we start out with your software project that is nicknamed a repository, and Git puts in this hidden .git folder that you'll never see, and it does some stuff behind the scenes to help you manage versions and collaborate with your teammates. So Git is used a lot in industry. There are some alternatives, but Git by far is an industry standard. It's probably one of, if not the most important thing you learn on an internship, because being effective in a team is a really big part of shipping significant software quickly, right? Initially, when you work with Git on your personal project, it will feel quite useless. You guys will see this later, but some people have already shouted out. Mostly you just do git add dot git commit -m, some message, doesn't matter, no one else will read it, and then git push. And you're just like basically just pushing all the time. You're never pulling, you're just pushing all your changes. This is because you're working by yourself. Git is meant for working in teams. When you're on the job, you're working in large teams. Within your like actual like org, say, you'll be with like 4 to 12 folks. But then there'll be like maybe hundreds or maybe thousands of people of other developers working on the same repository. And so they'll all be making changes to the same like set of files, and you need some way of collaborating with them efficiently. The other thing, like why Git is the topic of week 3, is it leads to so many common intern mistakes. It can get pretty awkward. You can look kind of silly on a pull request. So I want to make sure we can like shake off a lot of the like nerves with Git and learn some like common errors or common workflows. So that way you look like a pro on day 1 of the job, or at least you have some resources to like get going. Also, another huge benefit of Semrush shipping, if you're working in a team on your project, you learn a lot. If you're not working in a team on your project, I'll talk at the very end about open source. And that's a way you can sort of like simulate that for yourself and get better with Git without like a team personal project, but still, Git is an important thing to learn. Okay, so getting started, and I want to be careful with time. So I'm not going to demo initially, but if I have time at the end, I'll go through these commands on my machine so you guys can like see this in practice. So let's start with the project. This is just like a folder. Let's say it's under your home directory, then code, and then you have some cool website that you work on, maybe your personal website that's new. You can change directory into that website. So now you're from within that folder, and you run this command git init. What it does behind the scenes is it creates a hidden .git folder that's a bunch of files and a bunch of fancy data structures and things to keep track of the versions of your software. So on your personal projects, let's go through that workflow. First, you run the command git add to let Git know these are the files I want to push to my remote copy of my software project. Okay, so typically on a personal project, you'll just do git add period, which means everything, or git add dash capital A, that also means add everything. And then once you've added the files, kind of signaling Git, hey, I want to commit these, then you run the command git commit dash M, which means message, and you put in a description of the changes that you made. So this is the typical workflow that hopefully many of you have seen before. Step one is you add a bunch of the files, let Git know, hey, these are things I want to add. You don't have to add everything, but typically on a personal project, you do. And then you follow that up with a git commit with a descriptive message of the changes you made. One way I like to think about Git is a journal. So it'll record a log of the changes you've made over time in a software project. And shout out to Phil. Phil gave me the inspiration for this mental model thing, but it's very helpful. So we do add, decide what files, commit, and then what that does is create like an entry in our journal, and we can actually look at all those entries. So we can do git log, which gives us like a very detailed list of all the entries, the time and date, the messages that we put, the files that we changed. You can also do git log dash dash one line, which does like a one line list of all the entries in your log. This is a quick way to get a snapshot of the changes to your project. So I'm not really sure time-wise I want to do this now, but later we'll circle back, and I want you to try this in a folder with some text files, just kind of like mess around and break stuff. This is also the best way to learn Git, at least like get like very, very started, is just don't be afraid. Try running some crazy commands, try breaking it, get in some weird spots, and then fix it. And you can do this literally just on your machine with a folder and some text files, but we'll come back to that. Okay, so we can time travel in Git. We have this log of entries of all the different versions of our software that we committed over time. And each of those commits gets associated with a hash. This is just some like ID, basically. It's a set of characters, looks like a jumbled mess. So you can see I copied one here, F53, or yeah, F0D4, blah, 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 blah. It's not actually just some random mess of characters. It's just a string in base16, aka hex. That's why you only see 0 through 9 and then A through F. And it's just some long base16 string that won't be duplicated in your repository. And it gives a unique ID to that commit, so that journal entry. And we can go back in time. So with the command git checkout, we can go from the current version of the software we're looking at to an old version. So say I'm working on a project, all of a sudden there's like a new bug that I notice. I'm not really sure where it started. I can git checkout to go back in time, look at an old version of the software, and see if the bug is still present. That's a common example of why committing often is good. So you can have like various entries in your log you can jump to, and then you can see like, oh, like this at this point the software was working fine, so it must have been this recent change I made. Makes it much easier to debug your code. It also supports multiverses. So maybe you thought Git was boring. Now you have time travel and multiverses. I think that's pretty cool. It's really good for collaboration. So you and your teammate can create alternate like, universes of your project and make concurrent changes, so changes at the same time, through something called branches. That's like the term they use in Git for that. So again, we use git checkout, but with a special B flag, and we give our branch a name, and that name should be describing what changes you're going to make. So it can be related to like a feature, could be related to like a bug fix, or like my cool bug fix. And now the commits you do will exist in this multiverse. And later on, we'll talk about pretty soon how you can combine those with like the main branch of changes. The main is the term used now. If you look at really old code bases, it's master. That's like the central, sometimes called the trunk branch, for all the changes that when a new developer joins a project, they would start there. And that's what you would like release as software into the wild for people to use. And you can have like a branch to make separate changes that you're not really sure if you want to merge it, and later on combine them. And multiple developers can do this at the same time and combine all their work later on. So that's what branching is. We've talked about time travel. You can check out old code. Multiverses, you can check out a branch and then make new changes. Where does all the collaboration take place? I've hinted at this a little bit, but all the branching commit stuff, that's all just happening locally. It's making some sort of edits to the data structures in that hidden .git folder I mentioned earlier. we have to sync them ourselves by telling Git to do that to sometimes what's called an upstream copy of our repository. So more commands, don't worry. First, when we started with a local Git instance, we have to let our local Git folder know about the remote thing that we want to sync with. This is some like server that exists in the internet. GitHub is a common example. I'll talk about some others later. But this is like GitHub is your like central remote Git server, and then you have your local folder on your machine. To let the local folder know that your GitHub repository exists, you'll do git remote at origin and then a URL. I should have put that in, but I'll actually put that in right now because otherwise it'll stay forever. Git remote at origin and then a URL, and that will say, hey, so I want you to add as the name, the origin URL, like where the source of my repository is. I want that to be URL, and that'll be like the name, the link to your GitHub repo. Now, origin is kind of like convention for like the main copy. If you fork a project, you'll have like multiple remotes. You'll have your own copy of the repo and then the source one, which is like the origin. If you have never heard the word fork in your life before, that's fine. It's just an extra note for people who've seen this before. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, you can have multiple like things after origin, but origin is the one you'll see mostly because that's like a convention. Once you've connected your local Git repository to remote, then on your branch, you can git push to remote. So git push says, okay, take my local changes, and now I want to copy them over to the remote server so people can like look at them, see them, pull them later. Now, initially, when you do this from a branch, you'll have to do this -u origin my cool feature. -u is a flag short for -- set upstream, kind of logic type, hence the -u. And what that does is just say, okay, create a new branch and connect the remote branch to my local copy of this branch. And it's typical for my cool feature to match the branch name that you give here. You see git checkout -b my feature, whatever that branch name is, could be the same as -u origin my feature, exact same name. Once you do that initially, like once you set the upstream, you don't have to do it again. Then you just run git push, hence the brackets. That's like pushing your changes to the remote server. Say you want to, your friend push some changes, you want to see them. If you're on their branch, you can do git fetch origin to kind of like refresh your local Git copy so it knows about all the changes that have happened on remote. And then it'll describe like all of the different commits that have happened behind the scenes. And you can do a git pull to bring in the changes from the remote server into your local Git, the copy of the repository. Okay, I'll take a breath there. Any questions from that? And I'm hoping to just rip through a lot of these commands. I think it's way easier to see rather than talk about. But hopefully some of like the mental model of Git is making sense. And hopefully review for a lot of people. I know this is some of the commands that you would use if you're working on a personal project. Okay, no questions. We're like halfway, which is excellent. Okay, so there are lots of options for like hosting your Git server. GitHub is the one that I assume all of you know. GitHub allows you for free to make an account. You can create a repository. This on their servers opens up space for you to push your files. It's pretty wicked. It's kind of like Google Drive, but for code. And then there are a lot of other options. So Bitbucket, which is from a company called Atlassian, not really used anymore, but you might see it at a company with like an older tech stack. GitLab is an open source alternative to GitHub. AWS has a service for this. There are countless others. What's crazy is that you can even make your own Git server. You don't have to use one of these. You could go like take your laptop, turn it into a Git server, allow incoming connections, and install some software, I'm sure, and then have it your hard drive be like your Git server. I don't recommend that, but it's possible. So GitHub isn't anything fancy. It's one of many options you could have for hosting your code, and then there's a little bit of extra work in it being like a Git server, so it knows like how to get like pushed, how to have files be pulled from it, that kind of thing. Okay, so say I want to work, collaborate with my friend and like look at their project. There's one more command you should know, and that is git clone. So projects are hosted on GitHub under a repository, and you want to grab their changes. What you have to do, zoom in a little, is you click this green button, then you can clone it. So this button allows me to copy the URL. Then in my terminal, git clone, the URL will allow me to copy all of that software into some folder on my machine. There's one extra one to be aware of. I don't want to do that. Okay, so that'll create a folder, the repository name, and then you'll be able to like change directory into there, edit all the files, do all that fancy push pull stuff that we've been talking about. We cannot see the terminal. Oh, that is such a good shout. Okay, I would have definitely made that mistake. Let me stop sharing for a sec, and I'll just share my entire window. Entire screen, desktop one, share sound, lovely. Okay, so that's what I just typed in. That's all. Git clone the URL, that'll clone the files, basically just copy the folder onto your machine. Plus, it'll set up that .git folder with all the good stuff you need to do collaboration. Now, unfortunately, collaboration is not always as easy. I'm just not like pushing and pulling all the time. If it was just pushing and pulling all the time and nothing ever went wrong, then Git wouldn't be this famous. There wouldn't be all these like intern mistakes. It wouldn't be scary at all. What I will say is collaboration is only hard when you're starting out. Eventually, you get used to it, and it's not as bad. It's still bad sometimes, so it's not as bad. It can actually be quite powerful, especially some extras I'll mention at the end are quite cool. Don't be too afraid of making mistakes, but I will caution you when you're working with teammates, be very careful to not lose your work. Like honest to God, sometimes just like zip your current work and like save it. There's a command git archive. I actually should write this down in the slides, where you can, following the git ignore, save all your current work. If you're like really afraid, you get into some weird state, because you can, running a lot of commands, like nuke your own work. And a common intern thing is just like, like my Git is in a bad spot. Let me go to Stack Overflow and see if anyone's had this problem. You go to Stack Overflow and someone's like, yeah, just copy this command in and it will work. And you don't know what the command means. So you copy it in and it works, but it deletes all of your work or does something you didn't expect. And that happens to a lot of people. So just like save your stuff. Even create a copy. You can clone a repo more than once. Nothing wrong with that. Don't be afraid. Just go slow when you get into a weird spot and be careful not to lose your work. Exactly. How come your terminal says SOS? I just made a new folder. I didn't do anything fancy. Git hard reset. Exactly. That is like, I definitely, when I was new to code, ran this command to reset because I got in a bad state and I didn't know what it did. And I was like, oh, force, like, yes, I really wanted to have it and force it. And then boom, all your work is gone. So yeah, I will say, I'll just leave this in the chat and remind myself later. Git archive is cool. Let me see if I can put up. What it does is it creates like a export. This is exactly, yeah, do a git export. Pretty cool. And you can like have it respect your git ignore so you don't get all like the nasty like node modules and all that stuff in there. And then you could use that to like save a copy of your project, release it online. Kind of handy. I use it for school sometimes, like when I want to hand in a zip of like my work and I have it in a Git repository. I can't zip all the files because that would include like my node modules or like my .git folder. So I do git archive. Pretty cool. There you go. So if you already were a Git expert, you definitely learned that, I hope. Okay, so collaboration in the nice case is kind of what I've mentioned already. First, we like get other folks' changes, doing like git fetch origin. So we update our local copy by like refreshing its state based on what has happened to the remote version. There's this command I haven't mentioned yet called git status. Super useful all of the time. Git status is basically like, what branch am I on? What files have changed? What is the current status? Am I ahead of remote? Am I behind remote? What branch am I on? All these things are within git status. It's just like a current, like, here's the state of things. So all the time when you're working with Git, you should be just running git status to check that the command you just ran did what you expected it to do, or that you're in the state you expect to be in. So git status before and after like everything, basically. That's a good habit to have. So after you've done git fetch origin, you checked the status if you needed to, then you git pull get their changes. And this is the easy way, so we're just pretending that worked. There was no like fancy merging that you have to do. Everything just merged automatically. If you want to collaborate with your teammate, you share your changes. This is just review, git add dot, git commit -m with a descriptive message, git push, boom, off you go. Add, just to mention a little bit more detail, is moving the files that you list into a staging environment. So this is saying the staging environment is like, I'm about to commit these. Only stage files will be committed. So you can see, for example, with git status, what files are staged and make sure those are the ones you actually want to commit and send to the remote repository. And then once staged, you can unstage them really easily. It takes almost no work to unstage a file. If you stage a file and then you edit that file, it will automatically be unstaged. Yeah, that's true. So it's like the least commitment way of getting to a commit. What's a more intense commitment is committing the files. Once you go git add and you do git commit, you've like put that in a new tag, you've added a new entry to your journal. But it's still okay. You can reverse that. There are like ways around this. But what really like commits you into some changes is git push. Once you push it to the remote server, it's like very hard to reverse it. You almost just have to like manually undo the changes, commit and push again. So if you're not sure of what you're doing, maybe leave them in staging. If you're like half sure, you're like not totally settled on an overall feature yet, you can commit in like small amounts, and that's good. And once you're really sure, then you push everything. So that's like the level of frequency you should be doing those things, right? Okay, and one other note, a term I probably said by accident already, but I should introduce it formally, is a pull request. When you're making changes to a branch, happening locally, you push it. Now that's towards the remote server, right? The remote server is going to see that you made changes to a branch and suggest that you open a pull request. This is not a Git term per se, but it's basically now. What that means is that you open a request to merge your changes into the branch, and that's all happening on GitHub. So it gives other folks on your team an interface to review your changes, make comments on the code that you wrote, and then eventually hit this green button, merge, and that will sync your changes with the branch that you targeted. Often you're targeting like the main branch or like the trunk of the project, right? But this allows for folks to like come and review your code and see it on an online interface so you can collaborate and then merge it. And then when you go back to your code, if you check out main, git pull, all that stuff will be there. So again, a pull request is like a GitHub level concept, not really a Git concept. But when you push to a branch, GitHub will prompt you to like open a PR, a pull request. And then you're able to like collaborate with your teammates, have your mentor come in and review your code on GitHub. And then once it's good, you get approved, you can merge it in and pull it locally. You could also delete that old branch because you won't need it anymore, right? You just merge in your changes and you're all good to go. I will say this is how you get feedback as an intern, pull request, comments. So don't be afraid of getting lots of comments. I actually use comments quite liberally on PRs. I'll do my own review and be like, hey, I'm not sure about this, or like, hey, can I get some feedback here? These are like areas I'm flagging for people on my team to look at. So feedback is good. Also, let me review your code and the other mentors. So that's my GitHub. You have full reign to just tag me on a PR. I have no guarantee that I'll have time to review it, but I will try, even just to give you like a little bit of feedback. And especially if the PR is like tidy, it's not too many commits, you don't edit too many files, it's not too many lines of code, then I'll have time to give it a quick peek, say, this looks good. I think this is good direction. Or if you had some errors, I can like let you know and give you feedback. That's a really good learning opportunity. So, I mean, there's 20 odd people in this call, have capacity to review code as it comes in. If you want extra set of eyes on some changes that you're making, especially if it's like a tricky section, bother me. And then once you have a mentor, bother your mentor, especially because that's something that's a key component of an internship and something I want to help you do with summer shipping. So now you know Git, you know about pull requests, you know my handle, come bother me. Okay, so collaboration isn't always so easy. I'm going to talk about merge conflicts. I meant to put in an emoji there, but okay, you get colon nerd face for now. Firstly, on commits, they form a chain of journal entries, each that has a parent. So you kind of get this like singly linked list if you've taken data structures and algorithms. You can see that in this dark image here. The most recent commit, and this is stolen right from Phil's old slides. Thank you, Phil. This is May 14th, probably all the way back in 2020. There you go, you see it. And you can see like step by step all of the changes that were made to the project they were working on at that time. And you can see it's like a linear log of entries, right? This is the output of git log, exactly that. Now, it's not always so simple because as I mentioned, people can check out branches. And what branches do is they create two versions that are worked on concurrently. So if we look at this picture, start at the bottom, hopefully you can see my cursor. You can see that we have like the dark red, which is like there are no dots, meaning nobody has pushed changes to it or made any commits. Also, the light red line, nobody's pushed anything. But we can see there's like some blue at the very bottom, and then somebody did a checkout, made a branch that's like green, and it's getting committed to a lot. And then there's all kinds of crazy stuff that's being like merged with each other. This is typical, especially working on like fancier projects. If we go up near the top, a little bit simpler. So I'll focus on this example. This yellow line on the very left, this would be like main, and you have some changes from like a remote branch that somebody else made in your team. And when these two lines come together, that's like merging. And when things are smooth and nice, that's easy. They come in together, they can be automatically fixed. But more often than not, you'll have conflicts. So how do we deal with conflicts? Conflicts, I should be clear. I wish I had an example of this. That's something I could have added to the slides. Um, let's see if I can pull one up since I'm here. Yeah, well, you know what? I can ask ChatGPT. Give me what a Git. Okay, because it'll be way easier to understand if you just see what a conflict looks like in like a text file. Okay, excellent. This is oh, ChatGPT is so good. I wish this existed when I was started college. This is so cool. Okay, so here is some original text file that we have, and then here somebody on your team has like a feature branch. They make some change. So this is separate. They did git checkout dash b feature, and they committed, pushed a change, and then main somebody at the same time made a change. And look at the changes that they made. So somebody said, "Hello, this is the original text." Now we have text from the feature branch, text from the main branch. These are all on the exact same line, right? We've edited the same line in the same file. And so there's no way we can just automatically merge these. It's not obvious to you or me or Git how we can combine this line of text. So when we merge feature into main, we try to combine those changes. Git will give you an output like this. And it does look terrifying. You get these like characters, this is equals, like what is going on? But in this tiny little example, you can see exactly what's going on. Head, this is main, what we're merging into, is going to have the text exactly from main. And feature is going to have the text that was pushed to the feature branch. And because we don't know like which is which, Git is going to like separate them with this equals and be like, hey, for this two sections, right now it's one line, but it could be more than one line. You got to decide how you're going to merge it. You're given some options. Let's see my slides. Your job is to make it make sense. You can choose all of the incoming code. You could choose all of the current code. You could like look at these and in your editor, edit them together and carefully combine them. And then you get rid of all that extra stuff. So you like in VS Code, it'll happen automatically for you. But if say I'm just editing this text file in like Notepad, you could delete this, delete this, delete this, and then just keep the merged line of text. Maybe you keep both, maybe you somehow combine them, doesn't matter. Okay. So yeah, nice editors like Visual Studio Code will give you a slightly better interface for this. And you can choose again, incoming or current changes or combine them somehow. Git makes this sane. So most of the time, it will automatically merge your conflicts, which is fantastic. That makes things really easy. If not, it'll at least point out what file and like what lines. It won't be like the entire file and be like, there's a merge conflict somewhere. It'll just say, okay, within like lines 5 to 6, between remote and your local copy, there's some conflict. You have to decide what to do. So yeah, just go slow through these. You can test it during like a merge, and then commit after a merge once you're ready. This workflow, I really needs more time. I encourage you, and I will point out resources to like practice this. But just so you like know what a conflict is, now you know kind of roughly how to merge it. But again, this requires some practice to really get a handle on. Hopefully these don't happen often in your projects. So like the best way to avoid conflicts, you just like edit different files, separate your work, and like don't work on the same part of the code base at the same time as your teammates. That's actually pretty doable. Like if somebody's working on the front end and the back end, that's good. Or if like someone's adding a new like sidebar to your app and then someone's adding a footer, those should be like separate files, right? Make your life a lot easier. But yeah, Git will make this sane. Conflicts will happen. Don't be afraid. You'll get better at this with time. That's my advice for like a first pass. Commits, as I mentioned, get a hash. Branches and tags, which is like that head thing you saw earlier, those are just aliases for commits. They all just are a hash under the hood. So you'll see that sometimes you get in like scary, weird states where you have some like crazy hash and you're like, I'm on branch hash. What? They're all just aliases for commits. And then head is a special alias. It's the current commit, like the latest commit on your current branch. So sometimes somebody mentioned reset in the chat already. You want to go like backwards. So you want to like jump back and commit. You committed something by accident. So you can do this like head squiggle X, where X is a number, and that can take you back a certain number of commits. So I want to git checkout head squiggle 2. That'll take me back 2 commits, and then I can keep working if I like did something weird on the recent commits I made. That's a way to work around it. And you can delete your current work with git reset head dash dash hard. It can be 2 dashes, not an M dash. And that'll like nuke your current work. I put it in here because it's like often useful, but please use it very carefully. As I mentioned, Git archive, good workaround. This is this really cool website called Oh Shit Git. Apologies for the swear word. And it does a lot of like, it shows a lot of cool examples of my voice where you get stuck in Git and what to do. So a lot of useful like flags in here. Amend is really helpful. Resetting, I made some mistakes. I wasn't on a branch when I made some changes. Um, blah, 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 blah. There's so many useful examples in here. That's a good resource if you're like good at Git. I love this one. I give up entirely. You just delete the entire folder and then clone it again. And sometimes that's the best option. So some good resources on there. The other one, forget if I mentioned this later, is it's a bit of a like less common example, but the Git tutorial. So Git itself has both a user manual, which is like actually really good. It's from their official docs. Yes, it goes into like a fair amount of detail. It's a little bit technical, but it's better than any other blog post you're going to find. I think it explains things the clearest. So I recommend you go through like chapters 1 and 2 of this if you like really want to learn the thing. And see some cooler workflows, and it mentions all the stuff I'm mentioning here today and more. And then they have like a tutorial that you can mess around with and have some fun and break some stuff and get a better sense of how this works. So 2 resources I recommend. Oh Shit Git for when you're in trouble. Plus like ChatGPT is so wicked now. It can help you get unstuck. And then the official Git website. And I'll just say this as an offhand comment. For all of the like technologies I'll talk about this summer, for a lot of the stuff you learn, the best place to start for learning it is the official docs. 9 times out of 10, they have the best tutorial that you can find. People always find some YouTube tutorial or some, I don't know. And those are okay, but start with the like actual developers and the documentation and tutorials they wrote, and then branch out because usually they explain it the clearest. They like don't do some crazy analogy. They just say what it actually is. Okay. Some things that I don't have time to talk about today. There are actually way too many of them. I'm realizing as I'm giving this talk, but a few. There are different ways you can like merge changes. You can do like rebasing or like squash commits or fast forward. Not talked about that, but that's something good to know. Stashing changes is a useful workflow. Pretend you're on a branch and you have some changes, but you don't want to commit them yet, but you want to switch branches. Like you want to go look at main because your teammate is asking you like, hey, can you reproduce this like bug? You can just stash your changes, which isn't a commit, but like kind of leaves them on the branch. And then you can come back later and do git stash pop and bring them back. Very helpful. Cherry picking commits, often helpful for like debugging stuff or like creating a PR in a certain way. You want to like cherry pick commits and combine them in a certain order. You could like just individually cherry pick them out. Bisecting. So as I mentioned, your commits form a kind of log, and say you have a bug come in from a user and you want to know what change introduced that bug, you can bisect. So start in the middle, go left or right if it's before or after. So if you have the bug, go before, don't have it, go after. You could cherry pick and walk through and find the exact commit where the issue was introduced, which is extremely useful for debugging. Again, not as relevant on a personal project because you could just like look at the code as is, and maybe you have full context on the whole thing. When you're working on a code base that's not yours and it's like hundreds of files or something, bisecting is like your only hope. Useful skill. Resetting, somebody already mentioned this in the chat, but sometimes you just want to nuke your changes or do like a soft reset to undo a commit. Useful. ChatGPT is a good tutor. Git documentation is good. Yes, there's that. Um, a really important best practice thing, because you know how to commit, you know how to open a PR, is keep them small. So your commits should be as limited as possible, with obviously like doing something notable, and do them frequently with a descriptive message. So there's some convention called conventional commits, not conventional commits, that specifies one way of doing commits in a format that's kind of standard. Here are some examples. You can do like feat for a feature, and you say blah 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 blah, describe the feature, and you can add scope to it using like brackets, and you can add like a chore if you're just doing like some chore kind of task, docs for documentation, fix for bug fixes. You can like kind of like classify your commit, and then you put in a little description and you add scope. This is like one way of doing commits that is like really clean. I personally do. Not every company does, but that's an example of making a descriptive message. And again, please keep them small. Another best practice thing, small pull requests. So limited file changes, description, testing instructions. Any typos today? Testing instructions include screenshots or screen caps so people can like see what you did. So you see bad example, 197 files changed, thousands of insertions. No one is going to be able to review that pull request. Good example, change a few files, limited, clear name, description, testing instructions. Then you'll get a fast review, merge it, and then you can move on to your next PR. Other tips, this is just kind of, I'll just share some like loose advice. Be cautious of what you commit. So git add dot should be used sparingly. Just write git add and specify the files you want to add. That's a much better way of doing things. Sometimes you'll have files you never want to commit. You can add a special .git ignore. So I'll show you because this is very useful for your projects. GitHub has a collection of git ignore templates. When you create a new repo, you're like prompted to choose one of these. You can also just like go and copy them. Sometimes I have like more than one in a project. So I have like the Python git ignore, and then I'll also have like the Node.js one if I have like a front end that's like React. Yeah, so git ignores are for files that you never want to commit to your repository. Always know where you are and what you're doing by using git status. You can use something called poshgit, so you can see helpful information in the command line. So I'll pull up my terminal, and you'll see, I'll just do this quickly. I'm in a folder called SOS. If I do git init, because I have poshgit, it tells me that, okay, I'm in a git folder, and I'm on branch main. And then if I do git checkout -b, my cool branch, poshgit will switch and let me know I'm on my branch. And then if I do touch my file, that's txt, it'll say, look, it's dirty. There are changes that have been made. I can get status and see that stuff. I wish I could do more of like this hands-on stuff, but this talk would be all day. But that's, you can get a sense of like some stuff you can do. This poshgit thing is super helpful. It exists on Windows and Mac. Really easy to set up and gives you some good context right at the command line. Okay, other tips, go to rapid fire. Brownie points, use SSH for cloning repositories. Don't use HTTPS. If I go to a Git repository, you'll see I can clone it with an HTTPS URL or SSH. Use SSH because you don't have to enter your password every time and you'll look like a pro. If you're working on GitHub projects, GitHub has a CLI tool that they made. Pretty wicked. You can do all this like fancy GitHub stuff right in the command line. My favorite one by far is gh repo clone username / repo name. Much easier to remember. I don't have to go copy anything anymore. I can just be like, oh, I want to look at my project that's like has this repo name. I can just like write that command. So pretty handy. Another one, you can alias commands. This is true not just for Git, but Git is the most useful application I think of aliases. Is you can shorten, say like Git status to just GS, and you can Google how to do this. It's not very hard. And there's lots of, it depends on your machine and a bunch of other things, but you can write short forms, aliases like nickname for a command. And so instead of typing git status all the time, just GS, and then very quickly run it all the time. So do that for like all the common Git commands. And again, you look like a pro. If you're an intern doing this on day one, your boss will be like, what the heck? You should be a full-timer. And you'll be like, that's right. Give me a return. Some people, this is the last thing I'll say, I think, almost, is a lot of people use a Git graphical interface. That's GUI, graphical user interface. So here's what I'll say. There's one that comes with Git when you download it. There's Git Kraken, very popular, GitHub Desktop. When I was like in high school and like first learning to code, I did use GitHub Desktop. It was pretty good for showing me like, okay, I need to sync my changes. That's like a Git pull, or I need to push my changes. It would like show that in like a visual thing. It would show me like my dirty files, like what I've changed, what stage. It would have like a visual thing for like, okay, this is a staged section. Can be quite helpful. I think VS Code's built-in stuff for Git is like good enough these days. And then I really recommend learning the command line, mostly just in the interest of speed. So for a lot of things you do development-wise, try to take the training wheels off in time. If you're new, like start with the training wheels. But as you're getting like better and better, you're getting practice, try using the command line here and there. So this goes for like Git, you can use the Git CLI. If you are using an IDE, you can try using a text editor, and I don't yet, so I'm like talking to myself here. But using like Vim, NeoVim, Emacs, these are like good long-term investments because we're much faster at our keyboard, and if you're good at typing, that should be true. Then like always switching to your mouse. So that's a good long-term investment you can put on your like 5-year plan. For me, it's become like a 10-year plan, but you should try to learn the command line stuff. That being said, it's good to have an escape hatch. So like when things get complex, it's nice to be able to switch to a GUI. So have that available, but you don't need it all the time. Okay, putting this to practice. If you don't have like a team you're working on a project with, try open source. This is worth an entire other talk. And haha, I have another talk that I give that's on open source. I meant to have this linked. I'll link it in the chat. There's a workshop that I gave. You can just like go through yourself, honestly. And it talks about open source. I could like do this another week if people are interested in it. I think the slides are all under docs. But so it's specific to Hacktoberfest, but not that specific. And you can learn about open source and the other like Git commands you need to contribute to open source and my advice. What I will say just briefly, because I want to kind of pitch open source to you, I think it's a really good idea, is that this is a way to get like unbelievably good experience without an internship. Because you can contribute to like all of the open source projects. And if you're not familiar, like everything is open source. Like React is open source. So like everyone uses, every company almost ever. And I could go and I could like fork this right now and I could contribute. I could look at an issue, I could solve the issue. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that, but like you really can contribute to like almost everything. They even have good first issue. Let's see if they have some. Yeah, so these are like good like beginner issues. A lot of repositories have this like flagged. Pretty wicked. And this is for like everything. So I would encourage you to look, what software do you use? Like, do you use any open source projects? Can you contribute to them? In college, my school used something called Prairie Learn. And this is actually open source. So I could contribute to this online learning tool thing we use at UBC. And I did, and I still try to. I don't as much as I want to, but I try to. And so if you're looking for ways to like level up even more, maybe you're, I don't know, you want like a bigger project or you want to work on like your Git skills, open source. There are also ways to get paid to do open source. Google Summer of Code is one. You can read about it here. There's the MLH Fellowship. And I encourage you, look at these things. You work on real open source projects, you make money. These are like such good opportunities. I wish they would have, some of them existed actually when I started in school, but I wish I would have done more of them. So take my advice, do the thing. Finn, there we go. I went just at an hour, a little bit longer than I wanted to be, but that's okay. Okay, reminders, to-dos. If you haven't already, post an introduction and intros, add your project under the ideas channel. Reach out to mentors. More information should come tonight about that. Tag me on a PR this week. Why don't you? And I'll try to review it. And then within SOS, think about a reading group. I know there's a Berkeley hackathon coming up this weekend, which is pretty cool. A lot of you are doing build space. So like start sharing about build space, what you're working on, support each other. And yeah, if you want, tell your friends, it's not too late, keep shipping, all that. Okay, that's, again, I was gonna do this, but I'm out of time again. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please go post your project idea under #ideas for tracking and for accountability for yourself, and I'll give you a mentor. How cool is that? Remember, I'll say this all the time, the more you put into this, the more you get out of it. My focus tonight is mentors, and then this week I'll keep improving the website. Also looking at like the build space stuff, because I know there's a lot to do this week. Okay, questions? Anyone? That was much faster, not even a little faster than I want to be. It is a brutal talk to give because there's just way too much. And it feels like when you use it, it's like, oh yeah, like I use like 10 commands or less. But you give a talk, you're like, oh yeah, sometimes you need that. Oh yeah, sometimes you need that. So hopefully everyone learned something. If you were new or if you were had to using it a lot before. And this is one thing you learn by practice. I can't say it enough, but if you want to get practice artificially, go to do open source and specifically go work at those open source, go look at those open source slides, find a project and go today. Because it's such a good investment. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. The demos. Who would like to demo this week?
I can if you want. We need
That would
someone
be
right now.
amazing. I'm so down.
Yeah,
I'll stop sharing. Feel free. You should be able to share your screen.
word. Hi everyone, my name is Ian. I haven't talked at one of these yet, so I think I am new to most people. I'm a upcoming senior at Claremont McKenna, which is a liberal arts school in like the LA area. I'm a philosophy and data science major. So I'm not like a pure CS person, and I don't have a strict engineering background. And when I was looking at my rap sheet before I go into like the real world, what I lack is like hardcore technical knowledge, and then some kind of like ownership, like really having like something that I get my hands super deep in and work on. And so summer of shipping is like really a great fit for what I was looking for. Um, Something else about me is I have a like a fine art background. So I am a museum exhibited fine artist. So if you ever find yourself at the London Science Museum, go check it out. I do computational art, so it's like programming for fine art. And when I was doing more like fine art stuff, I met a bunch of people who wanted to make like art portfolios and like show their work, and had these just like terrible experiences doing it. And they were going to make a website, and that was like a really crappy experience, or they could make an Instagram page and that sucked, and they were worried about their stuff getting scraped by AI, and they couldn't find other people who were in the same boat. And so what I wanted to do with my project is make an art sharing platform, where you can just have a better overall experience. You can customize your work, and you can have people see it how you want them to see it. You can find other people in who are making cool stuff, which is like shockingly difficult to do right now. And then also that can have some forms of AI protection, even if they're minimal, because at the very least, if you post your stuff on Instagram, you can guarantee that it's getting scraped. So let me show you where I'm at right now. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I started off just doing designs. And so this is my, can you all see this?
Yes,
See
this
my
looks
screen,
good.
my Figma?
Yep.
Cool. So this is the base prototype. This is the homepage. We can mess around here, go to a more specific view for each individual artwork, get a close-up. We can do more of like a profile view. The groups, I'm doing like groups so you can like find other people in like maybe you want to see only painters or people like from your college. So there's like a clubs page. The app is called Art Club. This is like the clubs page. I can go to my page, check out like a general feed. And so this is where we're at with the designs of this. This is like a pretty functioning mock-up. I think I have this built out. Yeah. So that like with the designs, there's like we have a design system, and this is good enough to get started with where we're at. And I can get out of this. And so in this last week, I have like I didn't write a line of Swift until Friday. And now I have this little like baby. Hold on, where is this? Let me get this up. I have like a baby, unless I just totally goofed something. Let's get this going. Oh, yeah, so I goofed something. Let's see where to do this.
This happens in like every demo ever.
Really?
So core experience. You just break something right before because you're like playing with it.
Yeah, all right, never mind. So I'll send this into Discord right after. Oh,
Oh, there. That should be it.
yeah, there we go. It was just a W. Dude, we're so chilling. Okay, yeah. So we have like the homepage. So whenever if this works or not, I'll send it to the Discord if it doesn't. Like homepage is ready to go. Yeah, there we go. So learn Swift this weekend. Now we're on the UI going. Always looking for a hand on this. So if anyone thinks this is a project that like sounds interesting for them, um, we're always looking. There are like 3 or 4 people on this now. Like it's getting to have a little bit of a head count, but yeah. So if you're interested in basically, this is basically like a project presentation tool. So the way I'm setting this up, I also imagine like people, if you have some like personal project you build out and you go, wait, no one is ever going to look at my GitHub. Like, let me find like a better way to just like socially share this with my friends. Like, check out if you have ideas that you think like I could do better. I'm always open to feedback. But yeah, this is where I'm at. This is where what we're doing with this. So that's my deal.
That was sick. I'll confess I saw it already. I was amazed before. I'm equally amazed that you learned Swift in the weekend. Anybody have any questions?
Cool. But if you're
Good.
interested, like send me a message. I'm so open to like working with people on this if you feel it.
Yeah. Okay. Excited to see where it goes. That's so cool. Good luck. Anybody else demos this week? Do like 2 more, I think. Rodrigo, perfect. Go.
Can you hear me?
Yep, audio's good.
Okay, sweet. So let me share my screen. I have 2 demos. They're pretty quick. Entire screen, yes. All right, let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, so
Look
the
good.
first,
Rest of my face.
sweet. So the first one is this extension for Notion to sync up READMEs to GitHub. I built this because I saw that a lot of people here were like using Notion to like organize their projects and stuff like that. I kind of started doing the same thing here. But I also wanted it to be like this on the repo. And I also hate writing Markdown. So I found out you could export the Markdown, but that was a little too tedious for me. So instead, I thought it'd be cool if you just have like a little button right here for you to do it automatically. So let's see if I can do that. So for example, if we just add another column here, and then like add another, I don't know, something like that. You just press this button. It doesn't have any indication. I want it to like spin or something, but can't figure out why it's not spinning. And then you can see it just updates it. So it just makes it a lot easier. So I can go in here. For example, I want the Kanban board to be available on GitHub as the README here, so people who use my project can like see what's happening. So this is like the next feature to add to this. So that's it for this one. And then
Okay,
also have
wait. Before you go,
okay.
can you just tell me how you're doing it? Because I know like Notion has an API, but it feels like, what are you using? Are you using the API or no? Are you just like pulling the Markdown from the page?
I tried using the API, but I kept getting this error that I posted on here. This one, and it's because of course policy, because because it's a Chrome extension, it's not allowing HTTP requests to go out of it. Like Notion doesn't accept it. So that got really annoying. And I spent like 9 hours trying to debug this.
Yeah.
So I just went the easy route and I just parsed the HTML manually.
Yeah.
Because I realized I'll have these really useful classes. So
okay, this is insanely interesting to me. I'll see if I can ask about the issue you faced. But my assumption is that you won't be able to fix that because I think Chrome extensions are like a little bit limited. And then with the Chrome extension, you're like inserting that little icon into the Notion page.
Yeah, correct.
That's wicked. This is a cool project. I like it a lot. It's actually something that I would find really handy. Like I would use. I have this a lot where I like have content in Notion I want on the README. That's just like easier to edit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you could you know, because you work at Notion, if you could just like make this feature, it'd be pretty sick. Because I know you already have the markdown for it, so I was like, if I can just grab that and paste it, it's like one request instead of me having to parse HTML. So I think it'd be a really cool feature to
Yeah, I'll
have.
make a little note. I'll see, especially like the public API people and see.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, well then a demo number 2.
Yeah, so well, it's just an update because I had this music app. I demoed it last time, but
I
I know it
remember.
looked
Yeah.
terrible. So
Look good. What do you mean? But okay, I'm excited.
well, like you know, I just recorded it so you can see it better.
Sure.
And one feature that wasn't there before is search. So you can now search for songs and add them to a query. And anybody, so even if you don't have Spotify, you can still search for songs using the Spotify API, like basically for free. So I thought that was really cool. Okay. And so you can add it to your queue, and then once you skip it, it should be the next song. There you go. So that's the newest feature that I added, I think last week. And then I pivoted to making the Notion extension.
Bro, you're gonna put this app on the App Store. The search thing is so intelligent. Is like you could now, like if I have Apple Music, you have Spotify, I can play music in the car. We can both queue stuff. I don't need the other app. This is so
Exactly. So another note on that, I want to make this website because the inspiration for this is like parties, and like, you're not going to go to a party and download an app. That's too much trouble.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
scan a QR code that someone posts on like the wall or something, and it takes you to a website, like that's
so cool. That's so cool.
That'd be like super seamless. And you could just request music. You can vote on stuff. So I'm gonna try and make it a web app. But
Yeah.
in terms of,
you should do it like native, right? You should do like React Native or something. Then you could get bang. I don't know if you know React Native, but then boom, website, Apple app, Android app. Because I mentioned for the car context, actually I would have this on my phone, but it makes sense for the like a party version that you'd want like a website. You could probably do both.
I kind of have like this love-hate relationship with React Native because it was the first mobile framework I learned. But before, this was like 2-3 years ago, before Apple came out with widgets, it was impossible to do them in React Native. It was so difficult. You basically had to have a separate React Native project and an Xcode project. And if you have two, like
what's the point?
What's the point of using React Native? You know what I mean? Like you have two repos anyways. So that's why I stopped using React Native and switched. But in terms of like putting it on the store, I keep getting rejected. I've gotten rejected like 6 times or like 4 times. And they don't give me any advice. I literally told this guy the screenshots he provided me give me no insight into the bugs that he says that I have. And they're like, genuinely, I've tried this app in like 6 different phones. There's not a single bug I can look at. So I don't know what he's talking about. But it keeps getting rejected. So I don't know.
Okay, well, this is cool. This is like so wicked. I can't believe nobody's done this already. It's just such a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Any questions from anyone?
Any questions? All right. I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Okay. Really good work. Really good work. I'm colorly impressed. Okay. Anybody else? Demos? Do one more. It's 6:15 if people need to drop. So fine. Not all at once. You go to like 6:17 in case anybody's lurking. Also, if anyone has questions, very chill. Yeah. Yeah, Friday's pretty soon, so if you want to save till Friday, so chill. Okay, I guess on that note, we're back again on Friday. It's a quick turnaround. So yeah, more demos then. I'll be talking about Docker. That one should be pretty hands-on. I'm gonna try to follow up on the slides. I think they're a little limited for like Git resources. I'll post some stuff. But again, just like try it. Like I don't really think it's something you can learn by reading about. You have to just do stuff. And the official docs are honestly pretty good. Otherwise, have a lovely rest of your week. See you Friday. Good luck. Keep tweeting. Consider build spacing. I don't think it's too late. I can probably add some people. I have like 5 invites. So, of course, thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Of course, see you.